Club in Vancouver, Washington. I've got the good fortune to spend some quality time with the Blast Motion Golf family. Certainly have benefited myself from not just the sensor, but the Blast Connect. That's been a vital tool for me to help me with my communication with my players. So a couple things that I'll kind of talk about today is the many ways that I utilize this tool for my coaching, but more importantly, the simple process of the aftermath of a lesson and the aftermath of dealing with a client. And then I'll get into a little personal story with a member. His name is Greg Railsback. He's a member at Royal Oaks, and it was an outstanding story where we actually created a lot of efficiency with his timing, and that actually had a big gain in his miles per hour of his driver club head speed. And I'll get into that here in a little bit, but again, putting and utilizing this tool, I think the first thing that you're just looking for is the consistency and the development of the timing factor. Because if you can get the timing down and you can find your unique timing that we'll get into here, the number one thing that sets the tone for is consistency and how the face is returned back to the golf ball. So if none of you have used this tool before, heard about Blast Motion Golf, it's fantastic. You'll notice when I hit a putt, I'll hit a putt here, and the number one thing that I'm going to gain on, say, a little 5-foot putt is an understanding of my backswing, backstroke timing, forward stroke timing. So I'll learn like that 0.53 number. That tells me the putter took too little time, or excuse me, the putter head took too little time on the way back. So I would need to feel like that putter head took a little more time to get to my ideal backstroke timing. A great thing that I like about Blast is, again, we're looking for some guide rails. We're looking for some numbers with our backstroke timing that might fall under that 0.6 number. So I can really work on that if I'm going to be just working on my little 6-foot stroke. I'm going to feel like I can make a little bit of a change to my backstroke. And if I can make a change to my backstroke, I can see, okay, you know what, I overdid it a little bit. So now I can kind of go back the other way and fluctuate and make athletic adjustments here. So, again, over time you might hit a dozen putts from 4 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet, and you actually get some feedback. And I think that feedback's an important conversation piece because, again, this is a low cost and it's a super effective tool. It gives you all the different metrics that you need to have. You can set goals with their new app. One of the goals actually gives you a kind of a guideline where you want to be at. So if you start off and you're in the low 5s, or say you get somebody that say has kind of a yippy stroke, the one thing that you might pick up on is a player may take the club back, and a player may take the club back real slowly, and unfortunately you're going to see something happen like that number gets drastically off. So if you see that, then you get some feedback where you can kind of clean things up and create a little more efficiency to your process. So I see that all the time. A lot of the times you've got backstroke timing numbers that get out of whack, and I think if you can understand kind of the tendencies that you're trying to get better with, then you can make some improvements. I love some of the features beyond backstroke time and forward stroke time, not only from a tempo perspective, but you also get into understanding where the face needs to be at impact. You can manage how much the putter face rotates away from the ball. You can see and manage how much length to the backstroke you actually have. So once again, there's a lot of added value to this type of program. So any questions so far? So
what's the ratio that you're looking for?
Right.
Ideal.
Great question. So let's go back to a putt that's a little bit more ideal. So if I hit a putt here and I'm a little bit more ideal with my backstroke and forward stroke timing, I'm going to look for a true 2-to-1 ratio. So you can kind of see that I'm a little bit off and a little bit off. So from the understanding, the putter head takes too little time or too much time, and that's going to affect the backstroke timing and the forward stroke timing to be off with its numbers. That's your feedback. So ideally, when I really dial that in and I get closer to 0.6 and 0.3, again, over the course of some practice, you start to dial that in and get real consistent with that. You're looking for a tempo that's truly 2-to-1. So that backstroke takes twice as long as the forward stroke. So again, back to that previous putt, if I had 0.99, which is a super high number, that forward stroke, as you saw, was 0.57 or 0.58. So, you know, who knows what the putter face is doing in the duration that putter head travels away from the ball and then is delivered back to the ball. You've got that putter face doing all sorts of things. You might even have the putter head moving on a rising angle to an extreme degree that you just don't want. So, you know, again, not starting the ball in line, and certainly that affects your speed and your pace. So hopefully that answered the question.
Does this give you any, like some of the other things show skid, how long that goes? Does this do anything as far as how much the ball skid before it rolls?
Yeah, right now, you know, I know they just launched Blast Vision in regards to reading skid and roll. I'm not 100% certain that that's something that's being detected. With my education behind Blast Motion and how it relates to the Blast Connect, I haven't been educated on that feature where they're measuring that. So, but I would imagine there's some things down the pipeline that they are looking to be able to prove.
That's also an important parameter of putting ability, and the less skid you have, the more, if you're 80, 85, 90% roll,
right,
obviously then that's going to make a better...
Right, and to be able to measure that,
yeah,
and get feedback that the Blast sensor actually provides, I think is a big added bonus.
Our product education specialist, Granger, can answer that later for you as well.
Which one is it?
So, but kind of getting into a really, really excellent story that I had. I shared it with a couple of the guys from Blast a while ago, but Greg Railsback came to me for basically some driver assessments, and one of the things I learned from him that day is we're working on his ability to run the driver face up into the ball and help him control getting off the tee with more success. I utilize, you know, I have TrackMan and I've got all these fancy tools, but I put Blast on his driver, and we took some measurements. We made some initial assessments with what he was doing with his current state of driving the golf ball. And I note that with his driver, hitting shots, his backswing timing was 0.54. And I have this all documented on video, and it was fantastic to witness. Blast with a longer golf club like a driver is looking more for 0.75 for the backswing timing. So that you kind of understand, Greg was at 0.54, but we're looking for a little more efficiency with the timing. So when we worked on allowing for his driver to swing back and take a little more time, the number one thing that we saw is his backswing timing dramatically got better. It got closer to that 0.75, 0.80 number. That was kind of, I wanted him to maybe exaggerate that feel. His forward and downswing timing was dramatically more efficient. Ideally, Blast Motion Golf is going to look for about 0.25 for their downswing timing. And so he goes from 0.54, he gets it all the way up into almost the upper 70s. His driver club head speed was like 96, 97 miles an hour. And once that timing was developed and he got way more consistent with that element, the greatest thing that we saw is his miles per hour went up like 4 or 5 miles an hour. So of course he's hitting it now an exponential distance farther that he wasn't able to tap into previously. And you know, again, I don't know if you could have done those things, made those types of quantifiable changes with the TrackMan system if we weren't able to really measure the timing aspect. So it's a fantastic tool. Every single time that I feel like I'm coaching on the putting green and we're working on the efficient ways to make the stroke more efficient, or like yesterday morning, I was on the morning drive and I was talking about wedge game as it relates to Blast. And it's a fantastic tool to create efficient ways to work on your wedge game. So if you're, you know, struggling with the yips, if you have a backstroke time that might be in the 0.8 to 0.9 range, and it feels like the club travels and takes a lot of time, well, the forward stroke's going to be filled with a bunch of manipulations, and you're not going to be on point. You're not going to be tapping into your best stuff that you can. And that whole strategy and this whole tool is going to be a great resource for every part of your game, from wedge game all the way to driving. So I kind of urge you to give them a chance. Once again, great sensor, great Blast Connect online coaching portal. It's a fantastic blend for a lot of coaches, but it's a simple tool for the actual golfer. And it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. That's the beautiful part. So you guys have any questions, by all means, please do chime in. Anything I can answer for anybody? All right, I'll hit a couple putts. Okay. So I'm in the ballpark at the very least, and more practice, I'm going to start to dial it in. The last thing I would want to see with putting is that backswing, backstroke timing being in the 7s and the 8s. That tells me personally when I get long and I get slow, my change of directions again has to become a little bit violent, and I certainly don't want that. I'd like to kind of smooth it out, and if I can smooth it out and blend it out, it's a product of those timing numbers getting better. So again, that type of feedback I don't have when I'm just hitting putts without a sensor. So I can really start improving on that forward stroke time. That's kind of the key thing now that I'm shaking the rust off.
So you're okay with the 0.58? Okay,
yeah, I am. Yeah, I was kind of in the realm when I first learned Blast. My numbers for my backstroke time need to be 0.58 to 0.62. So it kind of gives me that little framework. I know that Blast really kind of sticks to those key numbers. The backstroke time for consistent timing needs to be around 0.60. But at the end of the day, I know my tendency, I don't want that number going up. So my putts early on when I was shaking the rust off, when they were 6.3 and 6.5 and 6.7, if I'm actually trying to make the putt and I'm not doing all this, I really want to make sure that my signs of efficiency are around 6.0 or slightly below, for me personally.
Is that from any distance or is that within 6 feet?
Any distance. Yeah, the length of the stroke, the length of the backstroke is the one aspect that does change. That's really the only variable that does change. So if we had sorry, go ahead. Yes, sir. Yeah. So, and again, if we had a 40-foot putt or a 60-foot putt, you'd be able to see that same aspect. I mean, we can clear the way and I can hit putts down that way if you guys want to do that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's the one thing you have a chance to quantify and validate. If you do have a great, not to get off the topic here, but if I have a player, I'll take 5 balls. This is a fun exercise. This is one thing I learned probably from you back in the day, but I have one golf ball that I might put 3 feet away from the hole, then I'll put another golf ball 10 feet, and then 18 feet and 24 feet and 36 feet. So I have a pretty good blend of distances, and I'll hit those 5 putts. And hopefully if I can look at some of my averages for one metric, like if I go back to drill one, you guys notice if I hit those 5 putts, it's super easy to navigate. Their new app is fantastic. But if I hit those 5 putts, I'm gonna look at my average. This is my low, this is my high. My average needs to be really, really tight. And if I can do that for a 3-foot putt all the way to a 40-foot putt, I'm stoked. I mean, I'm ready for the golf course, and then I can trust what I've trained, which is the greatest part. Because you can keep this on your putter and keep it in an offline mode and go on the golf course. I think it actually just records contact. It doesn't record practice strokes, if I'm correct. So, yeah, so every single time you're hitting a ball, hitting a putt, it's going to record your data. And then you can look at that when you upload the offline strokes. I mean, that's just a whole nother feature, but, and I have done that, and it's pretty awesome. So, but you know, once again, if you do the little 5-ball stagger drill, right off the bat, you're gonna look at your backstroke time and the consistency of that. You're gonna look at essentially a whole different element, which is gonna be like in level 1 drill 2, you can get into the forward stroke timing. That's what I'd spend some time on. Now when I go home, I know I need to kind of clean up my forward stroke time. So the second I get home tomorrow, I'm gonna have to have some homework. But you know, the thing is, once again, it gives you that feedback and that quantifiable data that helps you out with your game. It's super simple. At the end of the day, us coaches, we're trying to remove strips, layers of thinking off players. This is very non-technical, not pertaining to their technique. It really is pertaining to a certain aspect about how they're moving the club. If you as a coach have to help them do something different with their mechanics, then, you know, once again, I've learned if you clean up the timing, the speed gets more consistent, and then all those club face angles or hitting on the rise, hitting down, hitting level, all those things kind of take care of themselves for the most part. So it's actually making the coach's job a little bit easier.
So everybody 0.6, 0.3, or is that just you, or is that?
Not just me. That's the goal for true efficiency. Yeah, that's the baseline. Great point, Matthew. So you might see some differences with players on tour, but for the most part, if you're really just trying to be efficient and simple with any level golfer, even a guy like Charlie Hoffman, who spends a ton of time with blast motion, I would imagine he's nowhere near those gray areas that are below 6-0 and well above 6-0. Because when he goes out under the gun of tournament golf and the nerves, and he's playing the game to score and he's playing the game to compete, I'd imagine he wants something that's going to hold up under pressure. So that's kind of why I feel, and I've seen this. I work with Aaliyah Abagani. She's a player for USC, the women's golf team. Fantastic player. I know this is a tool that she'll automatically tap into and utilize versus a mirror that I gave her or the string aid, because I think she sees the value and the credibility in that aspect of just really kind of dialing in the timing aspects. So, and we know tendencies. So like I did with my example earlier, I know my tendencies in my backstroke time go a certain direction. So I should know how to clean that up. And this tool just helps me out with that. So, any other questions that I can assist with?
About ease from lesson to lesson. When I take this on and off,
Right.
what lessons in a row?
I know there's new benefits to multiple players or multiple sensors that I have unfortunately not had the chance to spend much time with, but I know there's a capability that's fantastic for that reason. But from the aspect of taking the sensor off, honestly, you could take it off and put it back on as easy as this.
Just an art.
I mean, you get to the point where it's really, really dialed in, and then that blast man right there, his head is going to be right on the top of the grip, and that really kind of sets the tone for all that. So, so that might be the most technical part of utilizing this tool, is putting the grip sensor on. So any other questions that I can answer for the group? Blast Motion Golf, try it out, give it a chance. It's fantastic. Hopefully you guys had a couple things that you learned and you can apply to your game, and hopefully you guys give this bad boy a chance.